All right, guys, today we're going to start to talk about proportional relationships and equations. And we have not done much with equations this year. So this is our kind of our introduction to equations. I want you to complete the warm-up here. And notice that that last one has an x in it. Question is, how do we figure out what that answer would be if x is any number? All right, we're going back to this idea of serving of making rice, right? And we talked about this last week. If we're filling out this table, we did this last week, right? 2 cups of rice would serve 6 people. And we figured out that to go from 2 to 6, we multiplied by 3. 3 cups would serve 9 people. 12 cups would serve 36 people. 43 cups, well, let's see, 43 times 3 would be serve 129 people. 1 cup of dry rice would serve 3 people. Of course, you wouldn't serve that rice dry, right? You'd cook it first, please. So the question is, how are we getting that number in the right column? Well, that number in the right column comes from taking that number in the first column and multiplying it by 3. When we say we have x cups of rice, how many people will that serve? That means that x could be anything. We're doing that repeated thing every single time. We're doing that same thing. We're multiplying 3 by whatever that number is. And we write that algebraically as 3x. When we see this 3 next to an x, that means 3 times x. We know it's times because there's not a plus or a minus or divide. So when you don't see an operation, generally in math, it means to multiply. So when we see 3x, it means 3 times x. Okay? So again, we see that repeated operation. We're doing the exact same thing every single time here. No matter what, we're still multiplying by 3 to go from the left to the right. And I'm going to start to write these as x in the left column and y in the right column. We could write an equation that says the thing in the right column, that y, is equal to 3 times whatever's in the left column. So we're going to start to write equations like this. Now the book is big on using different letters for variables. I'm going to keep going back to x and y. All right, next question is talking about spring rolls. We talked about this one last week too. Our recipe says 6 spring rolls will serve 3 people. Complete the table as you answer the questions. And we'll talk about, in this case, they're saying n spring rolls. So here's our table. And again, we did this one last week in class. We filled out this table. And we realized that going from left to right, remember we always talk about multiplication. We're multiplying, not by 2, we're dividing by 2, which is the same as multiplying by 1/2. So 10 spring rolls would serve 5 people, and 16 spring rolls would serve 8 people. 1 spring roll would serve half a person. That doesn't make much sense. But again, when we look in that where that 1 is in that row, that's our constant of proportionality. 25 spring rolls would serve, half of that would be 12.5 people. And again, can't have half a person. But we're making an equation here. It says let's use n people. I'm going to change that just for now to x people. And I'm going to call the number of people y. X is always in the left, y is always in the right. How do I go from x to y? I'm multiplying by 1/2. So I could write this 2 ways. 1/2 x, or I could say 0.5x. They mean the same thing. Again, when we put those numbers and number and a variable together, it means multiplication. Question here was, how is completing this table different from the previous table, and how is it the same? In the other one, we're multiplying by 2, and this one we're multiplying by 1/2. So our scale factor, or our constant of proportionality, in this case is 1/2. It's the reciprocal of the last one, but the same idea here. We want to always think about what we're multiplying by to go from one column to the other, and we could find that by dividing this value divided by this value. Our next activity talks about flying from Denver to Chicago. Denver is here and Chicago is here. So we have a plane that's flying, again, at a constant speed between Denver and Chicago. And it tells us it took the plane 1.5 hours to fly 915 miles. So as we fill out that chart, we're looking here for a couple of things. First of all, we're looking for the speed. And we find speed in miles per hour by dividing. We would do 915 divided by 1.5. And I want you to do that out on your calculator, okay? Calculator is a good thing to have for this lesson. So hit pause and divide that out for me. I got, when I divided 610, and that 610 would be, my units would be miles per hour, 610 miles per hour. Now the other thing we were told just above that picture is that this plane is flying at a constant speed, 610 miles per hour. So we're going to fill in this table. In 1 hour, how far would that plane have gone? Well, in 1 hour, because it's flying 610 miles per hour, it would have gone 610 miles. And we notice that going from here to here, we're multiplying by 610. So then I can use that value to find out my other numbers. To go from 2, and 2 to that middle column, I would multiply by 610. And 2.5, multiply by 610. So fill out those numbers for me. And again, you can use your calculator if you need to. The last one is the more interesting one. Whatever this number is, we're taking it and multiplying it by 610. And again, the way I write that is 610t. That means 610 miles times the number of hours that the plane is traveling. How far does the plane fly in 1 hour? We have that filled out. How far would the plane fly in t hours at this speed? Would be this. And again, what that means is t could stand for anything. I could ask you, if the plane flew for 500 hours, how far would it have gone? And you would take that 610 and multiply it by 500. All right, so this says, question 4 says, if d represents the distance that the plane flies at this speed, write an equation that relates t and d. I'm going to change that a little bit. I want to write a relationship for x and y. X is our time and y is our distance. It really doesn't matter that much which we call which, but we often use x and y. X and y we use in the coordinate plane. We'll get to that in a few weeks. Let's talk x and y. How are they related? Well, let's see. The y value, and there's my dogs barking for dinner. The y value is equal to 610 times the x value. Your book wants you to write d equals 610t. It's the same thing. I just replaced the d and the t with x and y. How far would the plane fly in 3 hours at this speed or in 3.5 hours? You guys figure that one out. Hit pause and answer that question. All right, so we're talking, the next question is about the bread dough, and we talked about this last week as well. Complete the table. We want to figure out what we need to do to go from here to here. Well, the way we do that is we take these two numbers that we know and we divide them. This is our x, this is our y. And the way we find out that constant of proportionality, or that scale factor, is to divide the y divided by x. Y divided by x gives us that constant of proportionality. So if I do 10 divided by 8, that will tell me how much I need for how much flour I need for 1 tablespoon of honey. That would be 1.25. So see if you can fill in the rest of that table for me. It asks you to write an equation that relates f and h, but let's do an equation that relates y and x. And our equation always starts y equals something times x. Okay, finish this activity for me. And that wraps up our lesson 4 in Unit 2. What I would like you to do is go into the book and we'll do the practice problems. Fill out those charts, fill out those values. We can talk about them on Monday when we're back together. We're going to, I think, pause here at the end of lesson 4, make sure we're clear on everything, and then probably have a quiz on Wednesday on lessons 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right? So we'll talk about lesson 3, lesson 4, the homework problems on Monday and Tuesday, and we'll do a little review, plan on a quiz. Oh, we don't have Zoom next week on Wednesday because of Veterans Day, so quiz sometime soon. All right, I'll talk to you Monday. Bye-bye.